You're with Ali Moore on ABC Radio Melbourne.
Well, we were talking earlier this morning about that meeting that's happening in Canberra today between the Federal Treasurer, the head of the Vaccine Task Force and big business. And last week we talked to some businesses about the efforts that they think that they can make to encourage their employees to take up the vaccine. Part of that, of course, is empowering them with the right amount of information to make their own decisions. Last Friday, the CEO of the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, Jenny Lambert, joins us. Here's a little of what she had to say.
We've long since committed to an international program called Convince, where we encourage employers to encourage their employees to get vaccinated. And certainly we need to do that in line with government health guidelines.
And that was Jenny Lambert from the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and she talked about that company or that corporation, Convince. Well, Scott Ratzan is the co-founder of Convince. He's also the executive director of Business Partners to Convince, the initiative of the US Council for the International Business Foundation. Dr. Scott Ratzan, good morning or good evening, where you are.
Yes, good morning, Ali, to you and all your listeners.
So tell us a bit about what Convince does.
Certainly. Well, we formed this coalition called Convince. Actually, about a year ago, we announced it at the United Nations High-Level Political Forum. And the co-founder is Heidi Larson out of the Vaccine Confidence Project in the UK, who's been studying vaccination for decades. And we've been trying to see how we can understand the vaccine confidence or lack thereof, or what now is termed vaccine hesitancy, and better work amongst publics and with business to help educate both citizens but also business leaders and policymakers to help make the best decisions for vaccination. CONVINCE actually is an acronym which stands for COVID New Vaccine Information, Communication, and Engagement. And that's what we're working on now is the information communication engagement phase. And we're really excited to have heard Jenny, what she said last week, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry's active role as a member with us on the Business Partners to Convince initiative.
I'm amazed. I'm thinking that you probably felt quite pleased when you came up with that acronym. It's quite clever.
Well, ideally, we want to convince people, obviously, with appropriate information and help them make decisions, because those decisions that people make themselves, one, are stickier, they're more confident with them, and they're more able to share them amongst friends, family, community, and so forth. It does fit for vaccination in general, and never a time in history, at least in my lifetime, has vaccination been so important with COVID-19. And I know the hope is to get more vaccines in Australia and to get as many people vaccinated as soon as possible, particularly those who are most at risk at this juncture.
I've got some listeners, Dr. Ratzan, who are sort of suggesting that getting business involved will amount to, coercion, that there'll be real pressure to be vaccinated. Is the premise of Convince information, persuasion? Where's the line between someone feeling pressured and someone feeling that they're just having access to the right information to make their own judgment?
Sure. Well, if we think historically, we have had governments and employers and schools that have made it a condition of either work or attending a school to be vaccinated. And that's because there's good sound evidence that vaccines have got rid of smallpox from the planet. They've also nearly got rid of polio from the planet, and have been the ways that we've been able to put childhood diseases behind us: measles, mumps, rubella, diphtheria, pertussis. Many of us remember those. But right now, what we do find is that people don't trust a lot of the members of society. They don't want to just hear it from the media, and all respect to everyone listening. They want to hear it from their own doctor, or they want to hear it from the people that they work with, or the people that employ them who are looking out for their own good.
Do they, though? I mean, is that trust? Is there that trust in the employee-employer relationship?
Well, we've been finding that, and there's been global surveys that we've been doing. We have a 23-country survey just was fielded last week, and we are finding that people will trust their employer and follow their decisions more than they would follow a requirement from their employer. But they still trust their doctors, their personal doctors whom they know more. And for the most part, there is trust in society. It is a minority of people who don't want vaccines. The minority is a vocal minority, and they're louder. That's why we have Convince and others that are trying to get together to say, hey, we have science on our side, and this is what we need to do. And good multinational companies and local companies are joining on to the business partners to convince what we call the global COVID-19 workplace challenge, which gives very specific items for what an employer can do and how employees could feel confident that their employer is following good guidance, both globally and in Australia with the local members and the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry also following the guidance both of government and also science and medicine.
Can you give us an example of a couple of things that are in that guidance that employers can do, practical things?
Sure. I mean, some of it is pretty straightforward. We want to listen to our employees. So we need to have hotlines. We need to have town halls. We need to have open, whether they're Zoom conversations or even these type of talk show type approaches, that people can listen as an employer to what people are concerned about. Many people are concerned about different parts of their lives than we might just think in terms of getting sick. So we need to listen to their concerns. We need to follow the basic activities that are being done now, whether it's social distancing, wearing of masks, getting vaccines when they're available, and then encourage the confidence by challenging misinformation and encouraging what we call vaccine literacy. Again, giving people the knowledge and skills, but making it simple for them to get a vaccine so they don't have to go to a sports stadium, or they could do it at their workplace, or they could do it at their local pharmacy. So we've been working on vaccine confidence in that regard, and we think employers have a role to also advocate for that. And then finally, let me just say, not only to be equitable, but we believe employers, as members of society and communities, can partner and should partner with communities, schools, faith-based organizations, and the local leaders to help get the message out and to protect all of us. If we're all not protected, no one's protected.
You're listening to Dr. Scott Ratzan, who's the co-founder of Convince. It's an international organisation based at encouraging vaccine take-up. And Scott Ratzan, I wonder how much harder you think the job is in the Australian context. Every country faces its own challenge. Here we've had changing advice and rules around access, particularly in connection to AstraZeneca. We obviously have a major issue with supply. We have we have different states led by different state medical officers or health officers who have different emphasis on on actions that should or should not be taken. So it can at times seem a less than clear picture.
Ali, you're absolutely right. And if I can say, your listeners probably hear the American accent. Here in the United States, we also had similar problems with the prior administration of the early part of the pandemic, of getting the vaccine out and giving people bad information, such as hydroxychloroquine would work, or think about bleach and so forth. Leaders, we would expect more, and I know that there's been some challenges there. But having said that, I do think that they're on the right side, that they want to do the right thing, but some of the issues are beyond their control. The AstraZeneca vaccine, just as has happened in Europe, has had some problems. I know it's not been recommended now for people under 60. In the United States, the Johnson & Johnson vaccine also had similar challenges. So I think what we need to do is figure out the 80% of the people last year in the surveys that I've seen were confident that they would take a vaccine. Right now, the recent surveys say about 70% of people are likely or neutral in taking a vaccine. So we've got to work on the people that are ready to take a vaccine. We call those the avid seekers. Let's make it easy and as fast as possible that people can say, hey, those people are protected. They're getting back to work. They're watching that football match, as some of them tried to earlier this morning, and they're able to do it in a safe manner. Once we have more people vaccinated, then it will catch on a little bit more, and I think the governmental challenges will be overcome. At the same time, I think it's quite important that whether it's ABC or others, try to create and be the trusted source of information that people know that is consistent from the scientific, medical, public health authorities, and that is communicated well, that people know that vaccines and vaccination is the way back to normal, and a way that hopefully the new normal, as I think the Prime Minister said, by 2022 at some point, is not that far away if we get going in an effective manner.
It seems a long way away at the moment, I have to say. But do you think that there is also, though, I suppose, increasing almost peer group pressure? Because if you look at statements, for example, by the Victorian Premier, where we are, the fact that in time, when everyone's been offered a vaccine, you won't shut down to protect people who won't protect themselves. And because it's all about getting to, it's not quantified in this country, but getting to a benchmark of, 70 or 80% of people vaccinated, that does create this sense that, my next door neighbour, I want you vaccinated because it means I'll be free.
Yes, hopefully that's a good thing. We've been trying the term that you said, 70 to 80% is often termed herd immunity. And it was originally, shall we say, veterinarian for herds. But right now, we should think about it as community protection. What is the right level of vaccination that we need for a community? And 80% is about right. Just like we would have a fire brigade and a certain number of police officers to protect us, we need to do the same by having a community protected with a number of vaccination. And the way we do that is with buy-in from the government, buy-in from business. And it's not only big business, it's all the way down to the small, medium enterprises, the people that want to have a business where people can go in and out, consumers can feel confident. So we need to really work with the private sector who wants everything to get back to normal as well, and follow what's good public health guidance. And I have a lot of faith in Australians, as I do people around the world. When I look at these surveys, yes, a number of people will not get vaccines, but an overwhelming majority are ready to get the vaccine and know that it will protect them, because vaccines have been around really for centuries. This is just a new virus, unfortunately, but we're using, shall we say, proven technology that will help make a huge difference and get us back to lives as we would like them to be.
Dr. Scott Ratzan, thank you very much for talking to Mornings.
Oh, thank you very much, Leah. Good luck with everybody there in Melbourne and the state. And we have great faith to be working with the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, and our business partners, the Convince Group, is really happy that we're able to share our ideas here today. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Dr. Scott Ratzan there.